All right, it's Justin Bourne. Oh, my God. What's up, brother?
Nothing, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. You can... people always think that the media fellas love it when the team is losing because there's more things to talk about. I think that there's been way more things to talk about. And I wrote down a list of things to discuss with you today. There's a ton. Yeah. It's fine. It's actually kind of nice when the team wins a bunch of games and the stories are nice and positive and you can break down winning.
Yeah. Dude, I got to tell you, like you and I have been longtime proponents of the happiness hedge gambling move, where it's like, I need this game. I'm going to bet against my team because if I lose, I better get paid for it. I just bet against the Leafs basically every night because I want them to win. Like, it just makes my life so much happier when they win. So I'm happiness hedging all over the place.
I stopped doing that this year with the Leafs, but what I was doing for a long time was game to go to OT because it got ridiculous. Yeah. They were just going to overtime every single game. And so I would live bet whenever them or their opponents would go up a goal. That was when I would pounce game to go to OT at a big plus number. And it was very profitable for me, I got to say. It was really, and then all of a sudden it started to careen, and I went, all right, we need to take a break from this because they're winning.
Yeah, it's totally one of those things where you're like, all right, get out while I'm ahead. It worked for a while.
That's it. Because you start to get a little bit more aggressive with the bets, and you're like, you know how that one, would be nicer is more money. Okay.
Every one bet ever. I should have bet more on that.
Oh, dude, there's nothing. My brother and I talk about it genuinely all the time because we share the meme back and forth. I would say once a week during a win, but in Sopranos, I think it's season 5. There's a scene where Tony borrows money from his wife because it's like this weird Tony has a gambling addiction season, and he puts 10 grand down on a game. He finds out it wins, and then she's like happy for him, but he asked for more money, and he freaks out at the kitchen island going, it could have been more, and that's every gambler. That's every gambler who ever took
could have been more.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been more. Could have been more. Anyways, you know what couldn't be more? The Leafs power play percentage over this stretch. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, 47%, 10 for 21.
Correct. So I'm trying to look at things that could change come playoff time. And no, do I think that they're going to be almost 50% on the power play during the playoffs? No. But when I look back at the power play points for this team over the last couple of postseasons, they're not great. Especially last year against Florida when people go, well, why don't the Stars score more? And where did Austin Matthews go? It's like, you know where it might be pretty good for him to be able to get goals in this postseason? You know what might help the Leafs' odds of winning in the playoffs is if they can have a power play that's more dangerous, doesn't feel as stagnant, and doesn't go into as many lulls as it has in the past. And they've been criticized many times for not being creative enough, not having enough guys in movement, sort of just trying the same thing over and over and over again because the results were good but not great. And I want to know what you're seeing right now that's different besides just injecting Bertuzzi onto the power play, because this success has also come with 5 of these games without their power play QB.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things with this group, and it used to be sort of that I felt like guys kind of got locked into their tracks or whatever, but I do feel like they're more open to moving at the top. Like you see Marner roll over top of where Riley is supposed to be, and I know it hasn't been Riley entirely, but like Matthews has the one-timer option that he actually hits this year, but he'll be on the other side once in a while because we know he can catch and release it. Like I just think they've moved around really well. They also have established, at times they tried the low play where Marner would kind of get below the goal line and the net front guy would pop up. Like, it's just been years of the same guys who've tried it so many different ways that you feel like they should be comfortable basically anywhere they end up. So, at times like this, it's gone in for them and all that, but they do look comfortable kind of moving it around. And, yeah, I think Bertuzzi in front has helped a little bit, but mostly it's a credit to the other guys.
Yeah, it's definitely the other guys. And it does feel as though everybody will move and everybody can change positions. But now Nylander has the left side, Matthews has the right side, and then Marner works as this just rover type who can do whatever he wants and freelance the way that he wants. And that's really creating just a ton of space for everybody because he's got the hockey smart, the edges, and the passing ability to find guys that ultimately end up in tap-ins like the one you saw for Bertuzzi the other night or the plethora of goals that Matthews has on the right side.
Well, and you look back, you talked about them in playoffs. Last year against Tampa, they were fine, but in the previous 6 playoff runs, their power play percentage was way worse than in the regular season. It's plummeted in the postseason. So, I look at other teams who haven't had that happen, and it's Tampa Bay, who have guys perfectly tailored to their spots. And then it's Edmonton, where McDavid moves around so much. And that, to me, is Marner's role with this group, is that if you have one guy who can pass it extremely well, sees the ice so well, and they're kind of rolling around the zone, it's just a dangerous position, and it makes it harder for the D to be like, all right, here's what we're doing.
The other part of this is, as great as Matthews has been, we've outlined it over because he's forced us to, because he has 52 goals. So hard to ignore him. Same goes for Nylander, who signed a massive contract this season and has played the best hockey of his career. So you've got 2 guys in their primes that are playing their best. Last year, it felt like Mitch Marner was carrying this team for large stretches, especially early on. And so I don't want to get captured and say this is the best he's ever played in his career, but do you think it is? Because lately he's been pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, we see flashes of this. I saw, it's like a month-by-month thing with him. And January, for whatever reason, in his career has been January and February, has been where he really makes his hay. And this is obviously, 8 straight multi-point games at this point. So yeah, it's definitely on par with as good as we've seen him as a Leaf. And you think to some of the goals, like the Nylander one on a power play where Marner has a rebound in front and just kind of makes a little dish so Nylander has an empty net. He helps guys score goals that they wouldn't normally score. It's maybe having less pressure on him this year, not being the guy so much, maybe that helps him in the postseason, and he's able to maintain this level of play, which would be huge for the Leafs.
So to me, one of the things that really signifies dominance in sports is where you go, how are you leaving someone so wide open, right? If you see Steph Curry get an open look, you go, how the hell is that happening? You see a great receiver get into the open field on 3rd down and they make a big play, and you pound the table and you go, how the hell is this happening? Mitch Marner's doing that for me right now with the space that he's creating in the offensive zone, where I'm like, how could you give him so much space? And I don't think that they're giving it to him.
No. See, this is the thing. What would you consider the dog days of the season? What games on the schedule? Is it not game 50 something? That's the exact point. You're before the deadline. It's, you're post all the major milestones in the season, and things slow down. No one can play at his pace like this. He slows it down and he kind of lulls people to sleep. It's, he has an ability, once the game is 1% less than max capacity, to just absolutely control the play and where the puck goes.
This is my only fear, by the way, is what you just said. Is that this is the lull period for everybody else. Everyone came out of the All-Star break and they're sort of groggy, and they got the energy boost right at the right time. Actually, this is a good spot to do. You and I have always done is this a guy? And we haven't done it in a really long time because we were bit in the past. We did. Our guy percentage at one point was incredible. We had this. It was.
Have we missed?
Yes, one notably, big time.
Ooh.
Well, I guess some people think he's a guy. I wish so badly I could revoke guy status. It was Engvall.
Buddy, we guyed Engvall up when he was 10 games in his NHL career. He just signed a 7-year, $21 million deal. That's a guy.
But there's never been a player I've hated to watch more. So it's this thing where I go, you got guy status, and yes, you made money, but there was never a day where he wore the sweater outside of after those 10 games where I went, God, I hope you get that contract here, And he did get, what did he get traded for? It was a 3rd-round pick in a year where they were trying to win a Stanley Cup. They just went,
have him.
Yeah. Here you go. To their former GM, no doubt. So, just take him.
That's how much they disliked the whole situation. They tried to stick him on a guy they didn't want to succeed.
Yes. And anyway, I'm not going to go into the depths of my slander for this player. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Player.
But
big skates.
This has been my thing with Bobby McMann. Obviously, not an Engvall type in terms of the effort level and the way that he uses his size, but a little bit of, hey, it's February. It's a lull period for a lot of players, a lot of teams. They've played some tomato cans. They've played some teams that are beat up, like the Golden Knights. How much of that are you weighing when you're trying to decide whether or not this is a guy?
Wow. A McMahon, is this a guy question?
Because he plays with a lot of energy, right? And a lot of effort.
Well, the only what catches me is his age. Because if you go back on my Twitter feed, in October, I called him a great player when he was at the Marlies, and I got DMs from 2 NHL analysts who were like, great? Like, easy on great. And I was like, okay, maybe he's not a great player. But I like this player.
He passed through waivers this year. It should be noted.
Yes.
And that's a huge mistake by other teams. And if Dubas was here, he never would have. But, it should be noted that did happen.
So he passed through waivers, and he's 27 years old. So it's, it does give me some hesitance. But here's what I'll say. I like everything about the way the guy plays. He is big, and he's fast, and he takes the puck to the net, and he could shoot it like anyone. Like, he has an absolute laser for a shot. So to me, I want a guy on my fourth line who's desperate to make the NHL, who's, trying to prove himself every shift, and, just goes and does what you ask. But if he gets a puck in the right spot, he might shoot it in. So for this Leafs team, he's a guy. He's a guy I want in the lineup, and I'm fine with that, including playoffs as a fourth liner. But I don't feel like he's going to get an Engvall contract at any point in his career.
Do you think that he's a third line guy, though? Because that's where he is right now, and it appears that more ice for him is really working well. And they're going to get Järnkrok back. I kind of want to see what it looks like with Robertson off that line and Järnkrok there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I look back at the way he sort of came along, and he went to, I forget what university he went to. It might have been Harvard. And he went to some university where I read some quotes from his teammates who were like, shocked to see him hitting in the NHL. Someone said he didn't throw a hit in 4 years of university hockey. And he has adjusted his game to make the lineup to be someone different. So my initial thought is, the guy I want him to be here is not who he naturally is. He is not naturally a guy who wants to go out and bang bodies and do that whole thing. So, I don't know if he's going to be able to keep up this level where once the scoring dries up, because he's not a 30-goal NHL scorer, we assume. Once the scoring dries up and he's, doesn't really want to go in there and bang all the time, it just gets harder to see it fit perfectly. I still think he's not a third-line guy, but on the fourth line, if he can just convince himself to hit in his 12 minutes and then maybe shoot one in the net here and there, I'd be very happy.
He reminds me of a guy who, actually his Office Space, when he gets hypnotized, he goes to the hypnotist and he doesn't care about his job.
Yes,
but some people try that to quit smoking. He feels right now like he's hypnotized into being an actual unbelievable NHL player. Like the way he's, like the confidence that he's playing with, the utilization of the body, the night in, night out effort. You go, okay, we did see this before, but we saw your size, but we didn't see you use it this way. I didn't see anything close to this player. People would gas him up, the prospect-ish guys, right? Our buddy Nick Richard, those types that watch all the Marlies games, and I would go, I don't have time for this. I can't. Yeah. I'm sorry. I cannot mix in Marlies games without a heavy paycheck coming my way to add this to the schedule. I'm not watching them play Laval back to back, okay? Yeah. No chance. But people would rave about him, and then when you come up, I'll go, yeah, it's all right. It's fine. Yeah. It's all right. It's there. He's in the lineup. But if you took him out for somebody else, I wasn't going to cry about it. And now I'm like, I don't know. Maybe there is a little bit more here. I'm definitely giving him guy status.
Might be.
I'm definitely giving him guy status. And I think as long as this hypnotism works, as long as the confidence doesn't break, that maybe he is a third liner on this team if his third line center is John Tavares.
Well, because he can finish it, you don't hate if he has to play on the third line.
Yeah.
But you don't. He can go out there and do all those things. At least if the puck comes his way, he's going to be able to execute. So I'm with you. It's there for him, and I'm curious to see if he's able to turn this into something sustainable rather than just a flash in the pan. But I certainly like the player and think it's a perfect fit for what the Leafs have been missing down the lineup.
I forgot you got a dog.
Yeah, and a mailman apparently. Yeah. I'm going to yell at him.
I was like, who's talking? Oh, right. Bourne got a dog this year. Congratulations. Because you've been a long-established cat guy, and cat guy has pivoted to dog guy.
Dog guy. He's a great dog.
Here's the thing. I like him if he's with Tavares. That feels like a third line. Part of, I said it in the opening block, but to me, there's a few things at play here. One is that everyone feels a little bit more connected and as though they have a role. that Sheldon Keefe has finally found 3 lines, but that also operates much better when you have your top 3 all in their prime who are cruising the way that they are and a power play that's clicking this way, right?
Yeah.
7-game win streaks, and especially ones that happen on the road, are probably going to bring teams together along with adversity of having a Riley suspension and feeling like you're hard done by or you're underdogs. But I love that we're finally seeing guys have roles that are more than, are you playing between 9 and 12 minutes tonight and trying not to kill us, but actually being able to play your brand of hockey. Like, look how fun this new second line is. All of a sudden, Tavares, McMann, and even Robertson, who could be Yarncroc soon, feel like a real thing. The question, you're the Keefe whisperer, right? You worked with him and you've known him for years. So do you think that this is a case of he was playing the long game all along? Or do you think that he sort of just fell into this and then he's just as traditional as any coach who goes, you don't mess with a successful lineup, and that's forced his hand? Like, either way, they're in a great spot, but I do want to know how much credit you attribute to this.
Yeah. So I've got a few thoughts on this. One of them is that there's no long game. Sheldon tries to win every single hockey game he coaches. That's the objective at the start of the game. By the end of the game, there's not a whole lot of send a message to the guys and we may lose this one, but we'll get them down the road. He tries to win pretty much every game he coaches. So I don't think it's a long game thing. On the other hand, I do think that when he's a little beholden to personalities at times, as anyone is who coaches a lot of personalities. And I think it's been hard to say to any of their elite talent, sorry, you don't get to play with any other elite talent. You're the odd man out. You're the guy who has to drive his own line and figure it out on the third line. I think that's been a challenge for him personally. And then this seemed to give him the opportunity to do it, to show that there was success, and then to take that to a guy like Tavares and say, look, this kind of worked, and we can see how it can work. And, we can, again, if he's trying to win the next game and he thinks this might work, that may be why he's sticking with it. What's funny is it plays into his strengths as well. One of the things Sheldon really does well is get guys who aren't involved, who are playing well, say they're down the lineup, like a guy like Tavares at 3C, get him those extra shifts with Matthews and Marner. Because you don't love Matthew Nyes as a top-line NHL forward in his rookie season. He's been good, but it's just not the natural perfect fit. So if you sell Tavares, you drive that third line, you be on the second power play unit, but trust me, when there's chances to get you in, if you're going or whatever, I'm going to play you with the best guys. I think it's a win for Tavares too, and he's looked great beside Matthews and Marner, and I just think it works for the whole lineup, and Keefe has stumbled onto something here that he can now take to those guys and say, this is why we're doing it.
I love it, and I honestly don't think that there's something that could happen other than an addition at the deadline that would change my opinion on this being the right course of action. And to me, there's a part of it that is frustrating because, listen, Nylander's having a terrific year. I think that Tavares, despite the goal-scoring drought that he was on, even strength-wise, he's often overly criticized in this market because, yes, he's clearly the dude out of the top 4 that is making the most too much money. He's
yes.
he is making.
I like that phrasing.
Yeah,
he makes the most too much.
Yeah, he makes the most too much, and I get it. And people have been sort of disappointed, and he's sort of an easy guy to criticize. But I think people overlook a lot of the good that he does. But I like that he's on this third line now where he doesn't have to defer as much to Nylander, where it doesn't feel as though he's digging out pucks for another guy, that he's looking for his offense, and that, too, you have a Nylander line where he is now driving it, and he is playing with skill and a little bit more speed, and the pieces fit, and he seems to have that Bertuzzi, Domi energy that those two guys have. That chippiness is actually rubbing off on Nylander. I don't think you can ever go back.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think that the days of Nylander Tavares, to me, are dead.
Yeah, and I am totally with you on that. I think it's a great solution for all of them. The Leafs talked to Tavares about this, obviously, and said, here's an opportunity for us as a team, but for you personally as well, to just take on a different role. The guy has 1,000 NHL points now. No one has any doubt about his ability to put pucks into the net, to contribute on the offensive side of it. But now it's going to be, okay, do you end up as Joe Thornton? Like as Charles Barkley, as all these guys who haven't won something, whoever, and said that guy could produce offense? Or do you change the way you play a little bit, help the team more, and really have team success in Toronto? And I think it's a pretty easy sales pitch, and I think Tavares has taken to it, and that could be the difference between success and failure, is that he seems to be willing to take this on, and he's given a great effort the last couple of games.
I was nervous at first. I thought that the body language was not great for a guy that really doesn't display it too often at the very beginning. And then he scored.
Yeah. And then maybe a little bit of success helped him.
Bingo. It's just all of a sudden he started scoring goals and you went, oh, looks fine. Looks pretty happy. All of a sudden Bobby McMann was chasing down every single loose puck, and he sort of got to watch and see how the play developed and play off of that. And boom, it ended up working out for Tavares. The big one.
And then look, they've told him if it doesn't work, we'll go back. We'll go back to it. But, let's just see here.
Well, and he has done things like he did move out to the wing when Ryan O'Reilly arrived, right? There's been stuff like this, and maybe that's a little bit of an easier sell because you're on a loaded line and you're still getting all your minutes. But, yeah, as long as Keefe maintains that level of creativity, which was something that, and I noted this on Leafs Talk the other night, that was supposed to always be a calling card of Keefe's. Like when he first came in, it was this guy's not afraid to try things that are new and different. And to your point about how he gets so bogged down in the win every little battle, not the war, I think a little bit of that was lost with him over the course of his career with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And maybe he's rediscovering that, and Tavares is really big help with that. You're right. The success works. We'll see how it plays out with the power play in terms of whether he's off it right now. But to me, this is just a great lesson for John Tavares is, hey, man, the more you sacrifice over the course of your career with the Leafs here, and yes, that will come to be a contract at some point, the more loved and maybe the more team success you're going to see.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I think it's an easy sell in theory once he starts, chipping a couple goals in and seeing that he's going to get the run with the top guys and the big minutes and all that, and he can mentally, buy in. I think it'll work all the better.
Okay, so outside of the top four guys, because I'm going to take Tavares out of this because his depth development, I think here being the third line center is huge to all of this. But what has been the most important, or what has been the most significant depth development to you over the course of this last stretch?
Well, Bertuzzi feeling important,
Yeah.
Not even the goals, just like them treating him like he's an important player, getting a couple of power play minutes, really just, I guess comes down to the fact that he's had success after they gave him that opportunity, because it opens this whole door, this whole world for the Leafs where you go, if he's a guy, a capital G guy, not just a Bourne and Bunkis guy, this is a massive difference in terms of what they have in terms of depth threats.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm going to keep referencing this because I think this is a lot of times why you have guests on shows, because you are hoping for some insight and you're hoping to glean something from an interview. And when I had Dan Bilesma on, who coached him for 3 seasons as an assistant in Detroit, this was what he mentioned is he's a guy who needs to feel good to play good, which was surprising to me because when Bertuzzi came in, I thought the implication was this guy is just a quiet grinder who's going to go about his business and play the same every single night. And why wasn't he performing to his highest capabilities in Boston? Who knows? But he showed up in the playoffs, and he's that kind of guy. And this year, I think that the moving around of lines and the moving around of his role during a contract season where he clearly wasn't one of the coach's favorite players was having a real impact on the confidence. And now you're starting to see a guy who it's like, oh, no. He looks happy. He looks like he's playing with joy. And all of a sudden it's resulting in way more success. And again, I hope this ends up being another Keefe lesson of, okay, I've had this guy for a quarter of a season now. I'm starting to understand him a little bit more.
Yeah, that's it. It's funny because it's not like all the Leafs' problems are solved. It's just that you can now see a way through the trouble. Like you can see a scenario where, prior to this 7-game run, if you had said, what's the best the Leafs have looked, and is that good enough to beat, the Rangers at their best, or, Vegas, or whoever it is you think is the best team, It wasn't. And now you can see it at least, how with a couple of fixes, okay, Bertuzzi gets going, feels involved. Bobby McMann is suddenly a third-line guy. Brody's better on the left side. Even Liljegren's looked better. You start to make sense for how this can be a genuinely competitive playoff club.
So then last thing, does this change your level of aggression if you're Brad Treliving?
For me, I have been preaching aggression the whole time, so not a ton, because I see a league that's weak. I don't see, three teams. If there were two or three teams where you're like, God, that's a juggernaut, you're going to have to run into that team eventually, and there's no way you couldn't beat them. Like, I just was trying to list off the best team in the East and the West very quickly for an example when I was just talking a second ago, and I couldn't come up with a team. Who's the best team? The Oilers of the West?
Oilers
everyone
now.
says
Oilers
Florida
can't get a save, and they've completely gone in the tank since the winning streak.
And everyone says, kind of universally, Florida is the best team. Florida's below a 700 points percentage. There hasn't been a team that's the best in the league below a 700 points percentage in 9 years, just twice in the last 20 years. So, this is a year to be aggressive where you feel like in any series, you may be at worst a 48% chance to win,
I will say this is, of course, they stopped winning because I bet on them last night, the Rangers, but they look pretty damn good, and I can't wait for that game on Saturday night. I think they'd won 9 in a row before that. I think that was their streak. They had also been putting it together at the right time.
And they have that guy that fights everybody and is definitely going to beat Ryan Reeves up. That's going to be.
I love that kid. Although Barnaby made a good point on Twitter yesterday, which was
he got his. Yeah, go ahead.
He's taking a lot of shots for 4 fights, and I was like, yeah, it's a lot.
Buddy, he got.
Yeah, tattooed.
He did not win the Olivier fight. He just got a bad grab, and he was distanced wrong, and it's
Olivier
just tough to get out of that.
Dude, he won the smaller fighter handbook, which was he got inside and used his leverage and beat the piss out of him. It's like, I actually wondered, that fight was because his other ones, it's been, hey, back and forth, up and down, and that one was just a statement fight for him where he went, oh, okay, maybe not more fights than Reeves' entire season in a span of a week.
Yeah.
Maybe we pace ourselves a little bit here.
He's 21,
he's
hopefully he doesn't do this all the time, and he's going to get man strength still. He's going to fill out. He's going to be the preeminent enforcer in 3 years or something. But
I love him.
Boy, it doesn't look fun.
I love him, and the thing that makes me, there's only one thing that really pisses me off watching it is, fans are losing their minds. McAfee is shares it. It's all over social media, and you go, I don't know how anyone can look at this and not think that this is good for hockey, that fighting is a fun part of the sport, and that it always has been, and that we clutched our pearls so hard that they snapped, and now we've got it where, Ryan Reeves, who was brought in here to fight, has fought less times than this guy as a Maple Leaf. And it drives me insane because, God, people love it. And I love it. And there's a few loud voices on social media that get so upset. And so we all kind of cower to it and go, okay, well, I guess we don't want to talk about how much we like it and all. And nobody wants to see a guy get hurt and blah, 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 blah. And then this happens and you go, oh, right, it's the best. It's totally the best.
I think we've also turned a point where, you can make the case that my dad's era, when they came out the other side of it, that they weren't educated on the risks and the brain damage they were incurring. These guys, this generation, a 21-year-old, is aware of concussions. He is aware of CTE. He has chosen to take the risk and considers it. He doesn't think he's going to get hit in the head. Clark Gillies never had a concussion. He never got, he didn't get hit in the head a lot. And a lot of these guys believe they're going to be the one to not get hit in the head a lot. And, whether it's right or wrong, that's a risk he has chosen to accept at this point. And so it's harder to say, you shouldn't do that when it's a grown man making a choice.
But I've never understood why people can't wrap their minds around that point. Like the NFL hitting stuff is much worse when the NFL, the reason that the concussion movie or it was a controversy was not that guys get concussions. It's that they knew and didn't tell people, that they were like, it's not that bad. It's fine. Anyways, Justin Bourne, you can hear him later today on Real Kyper and Bourne, and of course, regional games for the Leafs. Thanks for making time, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
See you, pal.